Imagine having a dedicated machine with case feeder, swaging capabilities, all decked out for case prep. In this video, we're going to talk about Dillon's CP2000, which is exactly that. Yavgu here from ultimatereloader.com. Here's my crazy plan for 223 and for 308. Get a Dillon CP2000 dedicated case prep machine, feeding cases in. I'm going to size and deprime. I'm going to swage. I'm going to trim to length with the RT1500 Dillon automated trimmer. Then I'm going to clean the brass. Then I'm going to run it through the RL1100. That should be a totally killer setup. In this video, we're going to get the CP2000 out of the box. We're going to get it mounted and we're going to get it set up for simple case prep. In future videos, we'll look at the RT1500 trimming machine and we'll look at other case prep scenarios as well. So I'm going to waste no time. I'm going to get this baby out of the box. We're going to try it. There it is. Well, here it is. Everything is out of the box and the packaging is typical Dillon over-the-top, awesome form fit, plastic covered foam insert goodness. And I had a little bit of a tear on the side of the box, but nothing was damaged because, you know, with that kind of quality packaging, stuff just doesn't get damaged as often, which is awesome. And this is the contents of the kit. This is the large kit. So this is going to be set up to do case prep operations on 308 Winchester. We've got the press assembly. Now this is very similar to the RL1100, but it is optimized for case prep. It does include the large primer swager. We've got the roller handle over here, the instructions, the spent primer cup, brackets. We've got the large completed, case prepped brass bin. We've got the Allen key for the tool head. We'll be using that because we're going to be installing our shell plate for 308. Swager hold down. We've got a cord routing clamp. We've got a complete set of Allen keys, a nice touch that Dillon throws in. We've got our buttons and tabs for case retention at each of the stations. We've got our detent ball and spring and additional mounting hardware. And over here, we've got a complete case feed setup. This came configured for large rifle, so we've got the large rifle case feed plate. We've got the case feed bowl. This is Dillon's new design with the variable speed, which I greatly prefer compared to the older design. We've got the power adapter, and as you can see here, we have a selection of different inserts for international plugs that will work with this adapter that's included. We've got the drop tube, the mounting pole, everything we need to feed 308 cases in this particular instance. Now, if we wanted to switch to something else, in addition to the caliber changeover kit with the case feed parts, we would potentially need a different case feed plate. So if we wanted to do pistol, for instance, we would need either the large or small pistol. And then if we wanted to do 223, which we will do, I'm going to have to get a case feed plate for small rifle. But actually, I already have one because I already have a 750, I have a 650, I have an RL1100. I'm sure I can conjure up a spare small rifle case feed plate. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get the CP2000 mounted on an RL1100 custom Ultimate Reloader bench adapter plate, and we'll start to put the press together. So I've already figured out a great mounting solution for the RL1100, and I'm going to use that for the CP2000. That is this custom plate that I machined for the RL1100 that is going to adapt RL1100 or the CP2000 to the Ultimate Reloader bench system. So I'm going to get this mounted. We'll get the press handle on, we'll cycle it a few times, then we'll go to the next step in the sequence of setup activities. All right, so we're mounted, everything lined up perfectly, just like I thought it would, because the mounting pattern is the same as the RL1100. We've got smooth cycling, and that means it's time to attach the rest of the bracketry, get the case feed system set up, and then after that, we're gonna install the caliber specific parts. The case feed assembly goes together much like it does on the RL1100. You've got a plate here, which is going to be for the completed case bin. We've got two standoffs. We've got a washer on the bottom. We've got this bracket here, which supports the bottom of this large acro bin. The pole gets mounted. The case feed bowl sits on top here as a finishing touch. We can tighten our screw here. It keeps it from moving upward when you don't want it to. I plugged in the power. I did a little bit of cord routing with some zip ties. Turn it on. Sounds like things are running good. We're gonna have to drop in our case feed plate. I'll note back here, you know, I love these kinds of stories because of the OCD, my inner OCD that gets to come out. I totally love my OCD tool rack back here. I've got screwdriver, ball end, Allen keys, inch and metric. I've got T-handles. This makes this kind of a job really great, but I did use the L-shaped Allen key down here at the bottom. There's little holes in these standoffs that you can use to tighten them, and I needed that L-shaped Allen key. So that worked out good. Next, we're gonna install the caliber specific parts. So in preparation for getting the machine set up for case prep for 308, I've got two things here. These were purchased separately. I've got the CP2000 308 Winchester conversion kit, and then I have a 308 Winchester steel die set from Dillon. We're gonna steal the sizer out of that kit. So let's see what's included with the CP2000 caliber change kit. We've got the shell plate. We've got the hold down for the swaging station. You can see here there's a punch. It's gonna go inside the case, hold the web down as the swaging rod comes up from the bottom. We've got our buttons. Those go to retain cases at each station around the shell plate. We've got the tabs that are used to lift the buttons. Those are actually really handy. This is the adapter for the case feed drop tube. And then we've got the inserter. Now I looked at the CP2000, this large kit that I got, and it already has the M stamped inserter, so that should work. We'll be installing this stuff. And then for the die set, we've got the sizer deprimer, and then the other dies we're not going to use. And what I'm planning to do is we're going to be following this up with the RT1500 trimmer, and the sizer actually gets set up as a pre-sizing. It's about 20 thou from a full size in terms of where the die sits. And then the final sizing is going to happen with the RT1500 die that's a part of that trimming setup. So this is kind of the parts that we're going to use from the conversion kit and the die set to get the press set up. Next, I'm going to install the parts. All right. So here we are. The machine is set up and ready to roll with the exception of the sizer die, which we'll talk about after this. So what I did was I removed the bolt that holds down the tool head. I pulled the tool head. There's these little screws here that hold the shell plate nut in place. Took that off, flipped the case ejection clip here out of the way, and then lowered the shell plate for 308 into place. Put this lock nut back. There's a pretty ingenious design that Dillon uses to tension this nut in the exact right position. And that's these little plastic plates here that ride down in a lip, and as you tighten them, they press inward towards the threads, locking that nut on with quite a bit of clamping force. So I tried a couple different torque settings. The manual says to go with completely locked down and then back off 1/8 of a turn so that you have a little bit of play, but not too much, basically. At this point, we were ready to flip the ejector back over, put on the tool head, and it is important with either the RL1100 or the CP2000 to cycle the press a couple times, and I actually like to tighten this nut with the tool head in the down position. That means that the guide rod is in place, both of them actually, the guide rods, and everything is aligned perfectly. When you tighten it down, that just means it's going to run really smooth and things are going to operate properly. Then it was time to install the hold down for the swaging station, which here is in station number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th station is going to be open. And there's 2 different adjustments. There's the hold down rod on the top. I created this little sectioned case here. This is actually a really handy tool to have when you're setting this kind of arrangement up. I put this in, and then I lowered the die, and then continued to lower the rod until it was contacting the webbing, and I could feel it cam over just a little bit. Then I rotated the swaging rod assembly until I could see the swaging rod come up into the primer pocket. And you're going to want to check to see when the primer pocket is removed and when it's properly radiused. Once you've gotten to that point, you can lock the lock nut, and that's going to preserve your swaging rod setting. Okay, next it's going to be time to set up that sizing depriming die. So we're going to take our 308 sizer deprimer die over here in station number 2, counting station number 1 as case insertion. Lower the tool head. Keep cranking on this until we contact the shell plate. And recall, we're not doing a full-length sizing here. We're going to back it off 2 turns. The reason for that is we're going to do our final size in the trimming station in the next video when we get the RT1500 set up. Okay, so there's bottomed out. I'm going to go half turn 1, half turn 2. Okay. And the first time I use a sizing die, that's a brand new die, I like to prime the die with something really viscous like this Imperial case sizing wax. I'm being generous to the point where I could have some small dents form from just the material. Okay, so we're going to insert the case, see how that feels. Nice, I heard the depriming happen. And yeah, it looks like we've got a good action going on there. We're going to go ahead and swage it, see what that feels like. Ooh, that looks great. We've got a little bit of a shiny bell going there where we've removed the primer pocket crimp. That should be really, really good. Okay, so I'm going to get the case feed plate installed. We'll run a few cases through here, make sure everything's set up good. So I'm going to drop the case feed plate in. I have not adjusted the clutches. We might need to do that when we have more cases. I have just a small handful here that we're going to run through the press, and I used some homemade lanolin lube. I kind of generously lube these. We've got generous lube on them, and we can back that off when we get closer to whatever our production situation is. There we go. Starting to feed, that's a good sign. They're dropping base first. That's also a good sign. And there we go. The micro switch shuts off the case feeder. Okay, and one more important detail. We need our bin here. Let's run a few through here. I did forget one important detail, and that's the fact that we need our buttons here. Let me take a moment and get those in place. Okay, now we've got buttons in place. Now we can resume what we were doing. That is slick. I think we're out of cases, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay, sea trials are done. We've got our cases that are nearly sized. Looks like our swaging of the primer pockets was successful. What's nice about this is, first off, we're going to incorporate trimming into the process so we can get it all the way through trimming. And then when we tumble, we're going to be able to clean out the primer pockets, which is just another nice bonus. Well, that was fun. We got the CP2000 out of the box. We got it set up. We ran some 308 cases through. You know, we're basically at this point where we're ready to go ahead and set up the RT1500, but that's going to be in the next video. I've got the RT1500. I've got the 308 case trim die here. That is going to round out our case prep process. Here's what I want to know is, do you have a CP2000? Do you have another press that you're using for case prep? Drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications because, like I said, we've got multiple follow-up stories. Thank you for watching. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, make your voice heard. If you have something to say, please drop a comment. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications because you're not going to want to miss the awesome content that is coming up. And finally, flex your reloading pride. You could look great in one of these t-shirts. We've got multiple designs at the Ultimate Reloader store. I'll see you later because I'm off to go shooting.